Right, back here at part two. David Pingree here. Right, next question I got for you. What was your most memorable race or meeting that you've enjoyed the most, and why does it stick in your memory even to this day?
Probably my last Supercross win, which was Anaheim 2002, like I mentioned. And the thing that made it really special, one, it was my last race, and even up on the podium, I was so late in my career at that point. I remember just like looking out at the stadium and after I got my trophy and we popped the champagne and interviews and all that, I remember just staying up there for a minute and going, just take it in, man. Yeah. This might be the last time you're ever up here. You never know.
Yeah.
And gosh, I think it might have been. I don't know if I got another podium that year because I got hurt.
Yeah.
Anyway, but that race, if you remember, if you go back on YouTube and watch, James Stewart was just ridiculously fast. That was his rookie season, and he was doing things that no one had ever done before. Yeah. And he slid out in the first turn. And I think I was third or fourth or fifth or something, and I actually went up into second, and then I made a mistake and went back to fifth, and then just kind of slowly started chipping my way through and got to the lead, pulled out a little bit of a lead. And then, for me, I'm just thinking, okay, just hit your marks, do your laps, no mistakes. And I start hearing the crowd get really loud, and I'm like, oh man, this sucker's coming. What's going on? So there was a spot where there was a 180-degree turn and then a triple. And so I could look over real easy and see the lane coming at me. And I saw him move into third. That's what the big crowd was, roar was for. Yeah. And I'm going, okay, I still got, I'm like kind of tracing back the track. I'm like, I've still got a pretty good gap on him. And so I'm just doing my laps, and then I hear another big roar, and I'm like, okay. And so, I think there was maybe 3 laps to go, and the crowd's just yelling it's just like a roar. And I'm going, what's going on, man? Is he close to me? Like, what's happening? He was just hanging it out. He was like on the edge of crashing everywhere. Yeah. Set lap times, I think, faster than the 250 class at that point. And anyway, I hit the triple on look, and he's, I don't know, maybe 6, 7 seconds back. And I'm like, okay, if I keep going this pace, he's going to catch me. He's going to be all over me on this last lap. Yeah. And if he gets to me, he's probably going to get me. He's got all this momentum coming. So I said, okay, I got to go faster. And that's really hard to do. When you've done all these laps and you're just into a rhythm, and then you go, okay, you have to be 2 seconds a lap faster right now. Yeah. So I started just like carrying a little more speed into the whoops and like pushing the turns a little harder. And there was this section where he landed off a triple and jumped into the sand pit. And I just started sending it. I was jumping like all the way into this thing. And probably like I didn't even know what was going to happen. I'm like, I just got to go faster. And I just jumped in, and it worked out perfectly. I was like, whoa, that was really fast, And so for those last 2 laps, I held him. I mean, he barely even caught me. I don't know that I could have done that pace for 15 laps. Yeah. But I held him off and won with like even a little gap. And I was just like, it was a cool feeling. Just because I was able to stop his charge and, be in my last race win. It was pretty fun.
That's pretty awesome, because normally if you try to do that, if you try to speed up again, like you said, and you tend to like maybe tense up, get arm pump.
Yeah.
Deadly.
Yeah. You'll either pump up or you'll start making mistakes trying to go faster. It's really tough to just up your speed, and I was able to do it.
That's pretty cool. That is pretty special. Right. Who are your best mates during your racing career, and do you still keep in contact with them?
Well, yeah, actually I do. So early on, I would say Chad Pedersen, if you remember that name. He was a really fast kid. He was a little bit older than I was, but we lived right across the street from each other. He was my teammate at Pro Circuit in 96, I think 96, and 97, I want to say, or maybe 96 only, and then he went to Chaparral Yamaha. But we still keep in touch. We were good buddies. When Grant came over, Langston, he and I were good friends. He and I and Brock Sellers got to be really good buddies. And I haven't seen Brock in a couple of years. He lives kind of out in the middle of nowhere in Ohio. So he keeps a low profile, but obviously Grant and I are still buds. I was at his birthday party ride day today, and you know, he's the co-host of the Whiskey Throttle show, so he and I are obviously good. Casey Johnson was another buddy of mine, and I don't see him too much. He's kind of had some hard times, a couple of divorces, and just some bad, some bad choices here and there. But when I do see him, we're friendly. So, all those guys. And then Phil Lawrence, who was a friend of mine as well, he actually ended up marrying my wife's sister. Oh. So now Factory Phil Lawrence is my brother-in-law.
Just about to say Factory Phil.
Yeah. So, there's not a ton of them that I really stay in close contact with because, life happens. You all kind of go your separate ways. You have kids and life just gets busy. Especially because I don't work in the industry completely anymore. I got out and went into the fire service. But when we see each other, and we'll bump into each other at Anaheim or, at some function around here, and we're all still we just fall right back into being friends and hanging out. But a lot of them I don't really keep in touch with on a day-to-day basis anymore.
Yeah. Okay, cool. What do you miss the most about your racing days?
I missed the big checks when I would do well. That was real nice.
Yeah.
It's real easy to pay off a credit card or fix something around your house that's broken when you get a $10,000-$15,000 check that shows up.
Was it always a lot of bonus related? Was it and stuff like that, or?
Yeah, for me it was bonus. I mean, back in my day, I think I was making $75,000 as a salary.
Yeah.
Maybe by the time I had goggles and boots and stuff, I was at $100,000. But it was the bonuses, and they weren't as good back then. But still, I think a win was $30,000.
Oh, yeah.
Second was maybe 15 or 20 or something, and then 10 for third. So I mean, a $10,000 check shows up to your house. I don't know about you. That's a big deal now. I'd be really stoked to have that.
Yeah.
So I do miss that, but I miss being on that podium and having all that work that you did and all the injuries and shit you went through to get there. Yeah. In that moment, it's worth it. You know what I mean? Yeah. You spend so much time preparing, and in our sport, it's tough that way where there's only one winner. It's not like a team sport where the whole team wins and we won this many games. It's there's one winner every weekend. And so, especially when you come as an amateur kid, all of the good pros were good amateurs, right? Yeah. And they probably won a lot. Yeah. They won locally. They would go to amateur nationals and win in their region. And so when you move to the pro class, the winning stops. It slows way down. Yeah. Because usually you have a guy like McGrath or a guy like Emick or a guy like Carmichael, and they just do all the winning. There's only a few guys that get on a roll and they figure the formula out, and they're still winning everything. Yeah. And for the rest of us, it's just a mental battle, and if trying to deal through injuries, it's a physical battle, and you're just trying to get back to that top step. So to get a win, you're like, this is what it feels like to win again. I forgot, it's an incredible feeling.
And in that era, it was so stacked as well. In that era, it was so stacked as well.
Yeah, it still is, man. I mean, there's not a lot of seasons that are easy to win races. There's always at least a few really fast people. Right now, to try to beat Kenny and Cooper and Eli, good luck.
Yeah.
Or Faulkner and Ferrandis, and they're just ridiculous. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Right. Do you have any regrets from your racing days? Was there any race days you feel you should have won or done better that got away from you, or even riding a certain bike for a season that you wish you hadn't have?
I think I took the best opportunities year to year that I could. So I don't have any regrets as far as the teams I went to. Good. I wish that I would have sought out somebody kind of like Carmichael did. He went to Johnny O, And they had a connection through Oakley because Johnny was working at Oakley at the time.
Yeah, yeah.
But he said, "Hey, can you just help me just
Sort of like
steer me?"
advisor.
Yeah.
Sort of. Yeah, yeah.
And while Johnny wasn't, the end all be all, he doesn't have a degree in sports nutrition or sports physiology.
Yeah.
He'd been there and done that. And he knew the amount of work it took to be successful. And as a kid, you got to remember, everyone back when you're getting started, you're a teenager. And we're all idiots when we're teenagers. Like, just that's the reality of it. We think we know everything, we know nothing.
Yeah.
And so I thought, well, no, I mean, I can see what Rhino's doing, and I know how to ride motos. Like, I'm fine. I wish I would have found somebody, even Wardy. I could have gone to Wardy or RJ. They were done with their careers. I bet for very little money, for a bonus-only deal, they would have been stoked to work with some young kid and try to help him come up.
Yeah.
But I just didn't. And so then you learn the lessons the hard way, and the window of opportunity in this sport's so small that between getting hurt and just, having things not quite break one way or the other, I never kind of built that momentum and kind of went to the next level. I was, every year it was like, okay, I'm going to win this Supercross championship, put in a solid season outdoors, then I'll sign a contract to ride one more year of 125s and then get a 250 factory ride. Like, that was always the plan. And one way, again, like I said, there's only one champion every year, and I'm racing against Damon Huffman, Kevin Windham, Ricky Carmichael, David Villeman. I mean, I sometimes I go back and be pissed. I'm like, I can't be pissed. Those guys are legends. Like, it wasn't like I was getting beat by clowns, guys that were really, really good, just beating me in the championship overall. So if I could go back and do it over, I would have tried to find somebody to help give me the knowledge on training, on nutrition. I ate like shit. I was the worst eater. I did not eat well. I didn't know what was good or what was bad, Even back then it's changed. It was low fat. And then now it's low carb, and that, you know what I mean? I wish I had somebody that had an education that could have just helped me steer me on that side of things and find someone to help me with the racing side of it a little bit better. Because I kind of it took me too long to figure it out, and I had wasted some opportunities by then. So.
I see what you're saying. It would have been cool to have a mentor of some sort. Yeah, I agree with that. Next one. Can you tell us a funny story from your racing day memories?
Oh, geez, funny story. Well, the first one that pops into my mind. I told you I did some East Coast races on a 250 when I rode for Pro Circuit. So it was 95, my first year with Mitch, and I was riding the 250 East Coast. We raced Indianapolis, and I made the main. I got like maybe 15th or 6th. I didn't do that great. It was the first 250 Supercross I'd ever done, so I was stoked to just get in the main and check it out. And we all went. The whole industry there was right next to the stadium. There was a grouping of hotels that all of us were staying at, and there was a restaurant. I can't remember the name of what it was, TGI Fridays or some restaurant, and everyone was there after the race. It was packed. DeCoster, all of Team Suzuki. I mean, you name it. Honda of Troy guys were all in there. And I was going with Mitch, and as we get there, Troy Lee comes pulling in, and he's with Johnny O, funny enough. And Troy's wasted drunk. He's so drunk. He gets out of the car, and I'm pretty new to, like I'm still kind of I'm a kid. I'm 17, 18 at this point, and, still pretty new to the circuit, and just I'm pretty green anyway. And Troy comes, he's all loud, and he goes wandering around the side of the building, and there was a glass atrium that, you could sit inside this glass atrium, and so it was like sunlight in the day or whatever, and nice little spot to sit, but protected from the cold of outside. Well, Troy goes walking up, and DeCoster's sitting in the atrium eating, so it's a glass wall. Troy's knocking on the window, "Hey, Roger," and he starts peeing on the glass. He's wasted drunk. And so we're laughing. We're like, "Oh my gosh, look at him," And he comes walking in, and there was a huge, like these moose antlers up on the wall.
Okay.
And he goes, "Oh, I want that for my showroom." And he jumps up off the ground, and he's got the antlers in it. He's hanging from them. And he's like shaking, trying to yank them off the wall. They're bolted in, so they're not coming off. We're like, Troy, get down. Oh my gosh, you're going to get in trouble. And then he wanders over to a table, and they have the lights that come down on a chain, and the electrical cable is wound through the chain. He starts spinning the lights. And I don't know why he thought that was fun, but he's spinning the light. And there's some people eating at this table. They're like looking at him going, what are you doing? He's just spinning. And the chain kinked up and wound up enough that it severed the cord, and sparks shot out of this thing, and the light goes out. And so he thought that was great. He starts doing it to another table. We're like, no, Troy. So at this point, the manager finally comes over and is like, your friend's too drunk. He's got to go. Yeah. And Johnny O's like, yeah, okay, we'll get him out of here, And he starts getting him to the door. Well, there's one of those huge gumball machines. I mean, it's 5 feet tall, this huge gumball machine. I was like, I'm taking that. And he starts wheeling it out the door, like shivving it side to side, getting it out the front door. He gets it out the door. Johnny had run to get the car. So he pulls the car up to the front. By the time he gets there, Troy's got the gumball machine right to the door. He's like, help me get this in. And the manager's standing right behind him. Excuse me, sir, you can't take that machine. So we shoved Troy in the car. And anyway, I was just like, holy cow. Yeah. This is a weird industry, man. What goes on here?
Yeah, what's happening?
But there's a lot of stories with Troy Lee and Mitch Payton that kind of have that same tone. Those guys go hard when they go.
Fair play. They definitely let their hair down then. Right, the next one I've got. Tell us what you personally felt that you were known for in your style of racing riding, if you could use 3 words to sum up your full riding ways and style.
My riding style, I would say smooth, technical, and corner speed. Those were kind of my 3 best attributes. Like the more technical a track was, the better I did. And especially in my younger years before my knees got really screwed up, my corner speed was kind of my biggest strength. Sometimes I'd struggle with whoops because my legs are short. But as far as like technical rhythm sections or jumps or I was just good at that. If it was really fast and just wide open and hang on for dear life and close your eyes, that wasn't really my style. But the more technical, throttle control, a jump or a rhythm or something where it was really tough to time it, that was kind of my strength.
That's cool. And smooth's always good.
Yeah.
The next one I've got is, what were your strengths you feel and possible weaknesses you felt you had in your racing days? Touched on that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, the strengths, the things I just mentioned, I would say. My starts, I was a good starter.
Yeah.
By and large, that helped me. I was always much better in a race than I was like a timed qualifying. Yeah. Or if you were just someone who was there doing lap times, I wasn't that great. And I was really glad that until I retired, we still did qualifying races. We didn't do qualifying by lap times like they do now.
Yeah.
And I'm really glad for that, because I would have had to either learn how to go fast for one lap, or I would have been doing terrible. My weakness, and I've said this a lot, is it was mud. Having spent the bulk of my amateur career in Arizona, if you know anything about that area, it's a desert. There is no mud. So especially not like slimy, slick mud, right? So, and another mistake I made, I tell this to young riders all the time. If you go to a practice track or if it's raining out, go ride. Yeah. Don't say, well, I'll wait till the track's good, or when they water, I'll let some guys clear the mud off and then I'll go out. Go ride.
Yeah.
Because and I imagine GP, I mean, the guys coming from the GPs are great mud riders. And over here, the way it's gone, we always have a couple muddy supercrosses because we go to a lot of stadiums with open roofs. And at the Nationals, they flood it in the morning like they always have. I mean, it is a swamp, and you got to do fast laps in that. Your qualifying time's based on those 2 practices. So you have to go fast in the sloppy mud. We get rain races, so, it's going to be muddy at those. And because they prep them so deep to try to keep the dust down for the whole day, the tracks end up very rutted And even though it's not mud, it's ruddy, sticky. I mean, the ruts and the turns are shoulder deep, man. I mean, your leg gets buried in there.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like a mud track that's sort of come around, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I just never was really great in those conditions. So that hurt me in my national performances. I had a lot of top tens, a handful of podiums. I never won a national, which is a bummer, but it was because all of my good results, I could go back and look through them, and like clockwork, if the track conditions were good, I did good.
You did, yeah.
Right? Like in '98, I was on an FMF Honda, slowest bike in the world. This thing was like, you could get off next to it and run faster than this thing would go. But it was the opening round was at Glen Helen that year. It had rained all week, and it was cloudy and overcast, so the dirt was perfect. I mean, perfect traction. And I got third, ran up front the whole weekend. I think I went 2-4 or something like that for third overall, if I remember right. It's been a long time, but I did great. And the team was shocked, like it was the first outdoor podium for that team because that was their first year. And I beat Scott Sheik and Sellards and all the other teammates I had that were expected to do really well. And then I was out the rest of that season with a knee injury, but I had years where I was on much better equipment. And you can watch and go, oh, yeah, this was a mud race, or that track's hard packed, like Sacramento, like I mentioned.
Yeah.
Never did good there. Never. Because they pour water on it before the race. So the first half of the race, I'm tiptoeing around trying not to crash. And by the time the track comes around, the race is halfway over. The leaders are gone, I might come back to 10th, but that was for sure my biggest weakness.
Okay, cool. If you could re-race a meeting or a race tomorrow in your full prime, where and what would it be? Why?
San Diego Supercross, 1996.
I was very certain of that.
Yep. So that was in 95 was my first year with Mitch, and I won one race, got a couple podiums, but I was still kind of finding my footing. And going into that 96 season, I just got really focused. I went over to Bercy and won all 3 nights in Paris. I did all the testing on the race bike, so it was basically built for me. And the year before, I was riding kind of what Rhino had built, and he likes to just hold it wide open and clutch it. That didn't work for me. So I built the bike around me. Man, I was fit. I was so hungry, And went to the opening round, which was an East and West round, and did pretty well. Came to Anaheim, hole shotted, got taken out by Greg Schnell, which is the reason I don't like Greg Schnell. Had a really rough night there, second in Seattle. I was second in points to Wyndham, but he had maybe 10 points on me or something, 12. And he was better. I mean, I'm just straight up. He was amazing that year, and he was better. Well, Tuesday of that week before San Diego, I get a call. Hey, Kevin Wyndham crashed. He broke his collarbone. He's not racing this weekend. And after San Diego, there was a break and then 2 rounds left to run. So I knew he'd be back for those 2 rounds. So I thought, okay, if I can win in San Diego this weekend, then if I don't remember the exact math, but if I would have won, sorry, I got a blower going out there. Can you hear that? Give me a minute. Anyway, I thought, okay, if I go to this weekend and win, I could finish second and third at the last 2 rounds and still win the championship.
Yeah.
And I was easily the second fastest guy. I think Jamie Dobb was over here at that time.
I remember that.
Jeff Willow, who ended up winning San Diego. Casey Johnson. Anyway, so I go into San Diego. I'm focused. I know what I got to do. And in practice, is that really loud?
It's not too bad. It's not too bad.
So in practice, I'm like, okay, I'm going to throw in some really fast laps here, kind of make a statement. Well, I come up behind Pedro Gonzalez. I don't know if you remember Pedro.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
And there was this double out of a turn, and then it was a rhythm section, but you could triple. And so he doubles, and I hear him get on the gas like he's going to triple. So I'm right behind him. I commit to doing it, and he checks up and just doubles. Well, I'm already I'm at the base of the jump, and I'm already in it. Yeah, so I kind of just go, I lift to the right a little bit, Well, I just kept drifting to the right, and I landed on a hay bale, just ate shit. I was a mess, laid out all over the start straight. Broke my femur, broke my hand, blew out an ACL on my left knee. I mean, it was a big one. And it ruined my whole season and took me a lot of 97 to get kind of mentally back in it. But if I could have that race over and just be patient, like, oh, why couldn't I have just been patient? Because I was 19 or 20 and full of piss and vinegar. But if I could have just been patient, like I said, Jeff Willow ended up winning that race. It was his only race he ever won. And not taking anything away from Jeff, but like I feel like I could have won that race and won that championship, and that could have completely changed the trajectory of my career. But like GL likes to say, if my aunt had balls, she'd be my uncle. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I like that. Right, is that all right if I just call that the end of part 2 for a second?
Okay.